welcome to the Dire Den. I'm Brad Wolf, and I'm here again with Mike from Imbear
Yeah.
or EMBR.
All of the above.
All the above.
Yeah.
Well, last time we built a dungeon and used
That was
some
fun.
tools that to help people do that.
Mhm.
And yeah, I had so much fun with that. I thought, why not take the next step to kind of teach people how to be a first-time DM and go from building a dungeon to building a village. So I whipped this little village up. I used Incarnate. It's like incarnate, but spelled with a K.
Mhm.
But, I used Incarnate to create this little town or village, and it's a super easy software. Each of these buildings you see on the screen are just stamps, so you just click and drag and put it where you want it.
Oh, nice. So you personally made this whole layout then? This wasn't a pre-made thingy? Nice. Okay.
Yes. Yep. I think it took me, and of course I've been using Incarnate.
They even have shadows. That's cool.
Yeah. Yep. So I've been using Incarnate for, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 years now, but it only took me maybe a little over an hour to throw this together. So it's a super easy software to use. It's a really easy way to make, whether it's local maps or world maps. But yeah, because when you're starting off as a DM, like, two of the things that you really need to have is your first adventure location, which we did last time.
Mhm.
We did that little dungeon, and then a place to role play and kind of bridge the gap between encounters, right?
Yeah. Bars for the party to go to, shops for them to rob.
Right. Because your most of your players are going to want that, Farford and the Grey Mouser or Conan fantasy where they, go into town and blow all their money that they just got from their looting the dungeon.
Mhm.
And that's the perfect place where you can interact with the player characters, with your NPCs, and give them rumors and plot hooks and send them out to whatever the next quest is going to be.
So yeah, this could be like almost if we want to riff it off the last one, this could be the village that hired the adventurers to go find the MacGuffin in that old school.
Right.
And there's, the mayor here was also a person that hired a bandit group too at the same time or something weird,
Yeah.
Someone could take all these things and mash it together for their own little mini campaign, even if they wanted to.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I thought. Is that if we continue with this series, someone could take each of these videos and then use the maps and make their own little campaign out of this to have their first D&D adventure.
Mhm.
And after I thought of that, I thought of Matt Covell's Delian Tomb, his starter adventure. He's got a couple videos from way back. So I actually put on this map, there's a road. Number 1 is the road to the Delian Tomb.
There you go. Crossover.
Because I was thinking, the dungeon we made would be pretty much perfect for like second level characters.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
my thought is you steal Matt's Delian Tomb adventure, throw the players in the deep end with the Delian Tomb, then they come back to town, meet the mayor, and then they take this road over here, number 3, the road to the old academy, and there's that dungeon we made last time.
Oh, I see. You already put it in there. Cool. And then other routes just in case they're just like, actually we want to go this way, and then you're like, all right, that's the road to the old city. I know where they're going. And then Benville Farm, and yeah, cool, awesome.
Yeah.
So is there something we have to start rolling?
Yeah. So what I put over here on this side is a list of templates, the stat blocks out of the
Which the only ones that our cameras are blocking is Acolyte, Bandit, Captain, and oh wait, no, it already shows the rest of that. So Berserker and everything else is good. So it just has a little bit extra that the viewers can't see right now, which is fine.
Cool. So these are all stat blocks out of the monster manual that are in that range for, you know, first, second, third level adventures. Because I mean, as you know, as a DM, you often make up NPCs on the fly.
Oh yeah.
Because and really all you need is a name and a motivation.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes to feel prepared, people want to have a stat block for their NPCs. But that can be a huge investment in time. So grabbing some basic stat blocks out of the monster manual is a great way to know what your NPC's stat block is if you need it, right?
Yeah.
But not have to waste time designing it.
I've had some times where I've just had just to fill the room and the void or like a just a landscape or town square. I've had, multiple people and then my players are interested. They're like, "Oh, who's this? Oh, this is Roy, blonde-haired, blue eyes from a farm up the road. Okay, cool. Who's this?" And like tries to, goes back and forth. And I've just had a bunch of names and a bunch of characters or whatever, but all the same stat block too. Like all of them are bandits or whatever.
Right. Yeah. You could also, because Commoner is one that I didn't put on the list,
Mhm.
but you could basically have everybody in town use the Commoner stat block.
Yeah.
Like if your players just go all, Grand Theft Auto on your village, want to slaughter everybody in town, you could just pull out the Commoner stat block.
Yeah.
Um,
Make a star system so they have to outrun the guards.
there you go. The other thing is pulling the NPC stat blocks out of the back of the monster manual is also a good way to kind of think of the types of people, the kind of the archetypes, if you will, that are
Mhm.
going to be around a town, right? Um, your town's probably going to have a temple or a shrine of some kind. So there's probably going to be an acolyte or a priest, somebody
Mhm.
who's kind of the religious influence, or maybe a druid, right? Who's the religious influence over the village. You're going to have some sort of leader. In this case, we kind of already presumed it was a mayor from our last discussion.
Yeah.
So they could have the noble stat block, right? Um, but then also thinking about, well, how do these people get food, right? Well, maybe they hunt.
Mhm.
So you might have a few folks in town that would probably be like, the scout stat block or the thug stat block. They're you know, the people who are good at shooting a bow or the people who are kind of big and tough. And those are the folks that go out into the woods and hunt for food for the village, right?
Mhm.
I put a little farm in up here, but um, you know, I got a little realistic as I was moving pieces around and building this little town and thought, I don't know if this looks like enough food for this many people.
Gotcha.
So that's why I slapped number 2 on here, the road to Benville Farm. Um,
Okay.
so presumably there's a farm up the road that produces more food for all these folks. But that could also be a location for an encounter. Maybe there's something going on at the farm and you have to go rescue the
That could
farm.
be a story piece in itself. Like, yeah, there's not enough food here, and there's a farm that has an underground dungeon where they find, fellow travelers and get a new food source, I guess. Yeah. That kind of a
Right,
cult.
right. Kind of you could go all HP Lovecraft with like the farmer has found some evil artifact, when
Yeah.
he was digging in his field, and now he's been possessed by some otherworldly entity or something.
Oh, geez.
And all the farmhands are turning into fish people.
Yeah. One thing that I've realized, I've only made a couple towns in my past, and I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. I just want to, before I, forget it now and then don't ever say it later, is that whenever you make in towns like this, you've already kind of like fleshed out and had a lot of design ideas and stuff. Having these things, if your players don't explore them, and I've realized this for dungeons as well, if they don't encounter something, just recycling it for another place later works a lot for me as well too. Like if they go to the mayor, they don't explore any parts of the town, don't talk to any NPCs. They just go to the Belleville farm and that's it. And then they move from there. you could always, or I've always, taken parts of, that little tower looking thing at the bottom left. Like, oh, that was a really staple thing that was going to, have this big old side quest type of thing, or lead them in a direction, or, have an NPC that was very important to the story. Just like relocating that, recycling it always is something that's in the back of my mind too for these kind of things.
Yeah, definitely. And that's always something you can do with any NPCs that you don't use in one location. You just put them in another location. Uh, and same with plot hooks, rumors, secrets, all that sort of stuff. Um, so if and that's a flaw that many new DMs often uh, run into is they'll put something on the map like this tower here and
Hmm.
say that the person who lives in this tower has this secret or clue that's going to set up another part of the story. But when the players don't go there,
Yeah.
right now you've got to, well, I've got to find a way to get them back to that tower so they can get that
Yeah.
secret or clue. You don't necessarily have to do that because since the players never went there, they don't know who was actually in that tower. So you could always change that if they go back,
Yeah.
uh, which they're probably not going to. And then, like you said, you can take that NPC and that secret and clue out of this tower and put it in a manor house in the next town over or whatever.
Right. And have it still, make sense. I don't know if I mentioned this last time. I actually did that exact thing where it was like I'm doing Strixhaven and they were going to a dean's office. I don't want to spoil the story of the Strixhaven thing, but they were gonna go in there and engage on the puzzles and the traps and get to this dean that they had suspicions about. But as they opened the door, they were just like, oh, there was this cave once upon a time in session 2 that led deeper. I wonder if anything's there. So they ditched this whole thing that was mapped out, part of the story that you're supposed to go through, and went to this cave system. I'm like, crap, okay. Well, the end of this had like a secret doorway, anyways. And I was going to put a teleportation thing there or something like that as well. So, okay, well, it just leads to this cave down there and it makes sense. And there was like, I made a ruins thing on the fly and everything like that. But it made sense, and they also felt smart for doing it that way. They're like, "We did it, we bypassed it," and I'm like, "Yeah, you did that." So yeah, recycling and repurposing is always something in the back of my mind for things like this.
Yeah, and another tip to go along with that is that if you do repurpose stuff and it ends up like you just said, where the players feel smart, don't tell them otherwise.
No, I didn't. I was like, "Oh man, you solved it. You guys did crazy good." Yeah.
Yeah, because that's ultimately the fun experience you want your players to have, right? You
Mhm.
want them to figure out the smart way around things. Um, my players, they really wanted this grim dark campaign, and so I made this kind of violent and brutal world. But so far, they've had 2 sessions where they've done no combat whatsoever.
Hmm.
So I think we're like 5 sessions in, and 2 of them they have role played all the way through and avoided combat.
That's fun
So
though.
yeah, so I mean, it's always fun when you have those kind of sessions because the players are really invested, um, in the setting and the story because they're talking to all these people and figuring out and telling people what they know, what they've
Mhm.
learned so far. So you can tell they're really invested. But it's just funny that they wanted this grim, dark, violent setting, but it's actually had almost and the opposite effect where because they know combats can get deadly, they're being more cautious and they're being smarter about how they approach situations.
That's pretty cool. And yeah,
Yeah.
having a well built town can definitely help. You know, just have different avenues of engagement, which is really fun. Um, Sweet. So, I guess run me through what you have set up right now, and then we can start trying to figure out some randomizations or whatever you have planned for us. Um,
Yeah. Well, so what I thought I'd do first is just have you pick out a couple of these from these stat blocks, kind of get some inspiration as
mhm.
to who are the important people in the town.
Okay.
And so
Should I randomize roll or should I just pick?
Sure. Why don't we roll? That's a good
Okay,
idea.
13.
13. All right. So 13 is a spy.
Spy.
All right.
Ooh.
So somebody in this town either is currently a spy or used to be a spy or has spy-like skills, right?
Okay.
Just because you're going to use the spy template for them if you need a template, doesn't mean they're actually a spy. But they're, you know, it's so you got somebody who's good at sneaking around, someone who's got some charisma.
I guess this could lead two different avenues. If you want it to be like, if it's maybe a spy from someone from the city, number 4, wherever the city is,
Mhm.
the capital, whatever it may be, that's been investigating this town because of they've been hearing about corruption or something like that via the mayor, or thinking about the mayor being corrupt, which in this case, in our story right now, they kind of are. Um, I kind of in my head kind of thought of them kind of like Littlefinger from Game of Thrones, where they act like they're about the people, but it's really for their own benefit. Um, or the opposite way, where the spy just is possibly the mayor who's part of some evil organization and has been planted there for like a very long time.
Yeah.
Could be another possibility. Those are the first two that kind of went to my mind. I don't know what you were thinking about that though.
No, I like that. In fact, why not both, right? Because you made the point earlier that the players don't see the stat blocks, so you can use the same stat blocks for multiple NPCs.
Cool.
So you could use the spy stat block for the mayor that we already talked about in the dungeon episode. So he's kind of a crafty, sneaky dude who has his own um, agenda, and then maybe there's another character in town who's the spy from the city, right?
Hmm.
Who's trying to investigate this mayor and figure out what's going on.
And that can also lead, depending on how your players want to play the campaign or what kind of characters they're playing, could lead into two different directions too. Like if they decide to, converse with this person from the capital and know that they're, well intentioned and trying to figure something out, and they're your heroes or your party are heroes, and they're about justice and bringing forth the lights and helping people, then maybe they'll that'll lead into a more campaign line. Or on the other hand, what if they they're like side with the mayor and want to become in this evil organization, or trick the mayor and get deeper into this evil organization to destroy it from the inside? Gives them options
Yeah,
in the future.
exactly. Well, so we've got our numbers over here. So why don't we pick a building,
Okay.
and that'll be the mayor's manor. Which one of these buildings do we want to be the mayor's house?
The most important one to me, kind of, if I was to say, in my mind, kind of, I can't really point at it, but it's over to the left, and up. Like one of the brown root, yeah, like that
These
one to
two?
the left, I think. Looks like the big, I think mayor, and I think biggest one in the like, but on the outskirts, that's still kind of like not in the center of town, part of the marketplace, still away from the people. That's the one that strikes out to me, I think.
That works. All right. So number 5 is the mayor's house, mayor's manor. And then the the good guy spy, for lack of a better term,
Mhm.
what is he posing as?
I was already thinking about that, and I was either gonna say just someone from the, just a shopkeep from in the marketplace with like a stand, or maybe someone that's just a farmhand at this point, like someone that's kind of more recent, can easily get in, not be super questioned, or maybe even a person helping with shipments from on the dock, like something from the river system. Was one of those things, just like a tradesperson in my mind.
Okay.
So I would say, yeah, the middle, the very center, if he's like a shopkeep, or the top right if he's a farmer, and then the yeah, just by the docks, I guess, if he is a shipment
What if
person.
if he's relatively new to town, right? And we make him working at the docks.
Hmm.
The number 6 is our docks. What if this building right here with the tower that's right by the docks is the tavern or the inn? That way, That way, that makes it relatively easy for the players to meet him.
True. Yeah, that's perfect. Actually, yeah, because the only way that they would meet, I don't think they would purposefully go meet a farmer. If I mean, maybe a shop, a shop owner with a stand would be one thing, but it's like, what would he be selling, and if they were even interested in buying anything, right? You would have to probably make some sort of hubbub in the market for them to go there and then notice something off. So yeah, that's kind of perfect, actually.
Like you said, this middle area definitely looks like a market. I kind of designed it for that. Because one piece of advice when you're building a village is you can approach markets, in two ways. One, you can just say there's a market in the middle of town, and you can get anything out of the player's handbook equipment list there.
Hmm.
That way, you don't have to role play shopping. So all the player has to do is say, my character needs 50 feet of rope and wants to buy a riding dog because I'm a halfling.
Hmm.
And you can just say, well, it's in the market. So if it's in the player's handbook, you can buy it in town.
That's what I
That way,
usually do. Makes it faster.
yeah. So if you're doing that, you could just slap one number here and say marketplace or the bazaar, right?
Yeah.
Um, but if you're running a more you know, old school style game where equipment is really important, then you could make 3 or 4 different NPCs in your marketplace. And this NPC sells weapons, and that NPC sells armor, and this NPC sells gear. This NPC sells, you know, lantern oil and basic
Yeah.
rations. And
It's
that way,
also fun to have like your players, if they're really if they have like a charisma player, if they really like the out of combat experience, like having them feeling important with like haggling or selling things is pretty good too.
yeah, and if you go that route, typically what I'll do is I'll I'll kind of group equipment together. So I'm not going to sit down and necessarily make a list, right? This shop owner has these things, right? Um, but I might say, okay, there's a Fletcher who lives here, and
Okay.
they so they make arrows and bows, and they sell crossbows that they buy from the nearby elves or whatever. So that way you're kind of you got one shop that's all kind of archery themed. Um, so if your player asks for something you haven't thought of, you can say, well, that sounds like something the Fletcher would have. Um, and then you could have um, the tanner, right, who makes leather goods.
Hmm.
So, um, so he would carry your light armor stuff. And then there's a smith, like a dwarven smith, who specializes in medium armor. So if they want any medium armor, they can get that from the dwarven smith. So I just kind of come up with the categories.
Yeah, gives them
Um,
options to explore it if they're into that. I like that.
yeah, and that way I don't have to make a list for each shop. I just know that okay, light weapons are this shop, medium armor's that shop, light armor's that shop. Um, and for a small town or village, you know, if you want it to be realistic, that's probably enough. You're probably not going to find somebody who's going to make heavy armor in a village this small. But we might want to have some interesting PCs in the interesting NPCs in the marketplace.
Yeah. My
So
thought was you could even have a third spy a template, and in one of the marketplace shops that you were talking about, maybe it's someone that has stolen goods that's trying to fence it, and if the players kind of notice something or talk them up or hear a rumor, can access this little black market in this tiny town.
so you could have in your marketplace, you could have a third spy, and just to add some flavor, what if we picked some sort of non-human character?
Sure.
So we could still
um
use the spy stat block, but we could say they're, um, like a player character race, like a tiefling or a dragonborn.
in my eyes, it's always fun to interact with like bugbears and hobgoblins, like things that you're normally like, wait, am I supposed to be fighting you or no? Like that kind of feeling.
That's actually interesting too, because the if somebody was to use this and use Matt Coville's Delian Tomb, the big boss of the Delian Tomb is a bugbear.
Oh.
So they could go They can go from fighting a bugbear to finding one in town, and that kind of gives you that feel for your world that not everybody from one particular race are the bad guys, right?
Yeah.
Not all bugbears are bad. Not all orcs are bad.
I mean, I like doing that. I did that recently, even with an entire village of goblins that were traveling on the back of this turtle. And I made it
That's
seem
cool.
like it was going to be this enticing like combat encounter. And then when they got closer, they like someone was like, something doesn't seem right. And there was like, yeah, like goblin children and stuff like that. And they're like, oh, this is just a town.
And another way to approach building towns and villages, right, is to think of your player character types. So like your fighter is probably going to be wanting to get better armor and weapons as fast as possible. So
Mhm.
you could have that covered by your marketplace. So maybe the bugbear is also a smith who makes really good axes or something. Um, and then your other now we already got like a whole spy setup going on here, right? So that could be perfect for your rogue character.
Especially if like maybe there's the person that's at 6. Like this is something that I don't see get often used enough is thieves can't. That could be a perfect spot for at number 6. Like maybe there's like a piece of paper or some sort of like ornament that has some sort of like weird etching on it or something like that that doesn't, to the normal eye doesn't look like anything, but if your thief sees it, they're like, oh, that's like a symbol of, explain to them like it's a symbol of the capital or something, something along the lines, or like a message from the capital.
Or you could even have the first thing I thought of when you said thieves can't is what if the bugbear, right? He's the shopkeep who makes the good axes, right? But he probably has, you know, like somebody to help him all his stuff around and kind of fetch things for him and that sort of thing. So maybe he's got a goblin sidekick, right?
Yeah.
Because bugbears and goblins are related. And so maybe the goblin speaks to the bugbear with thieves can't.
Yeah.
And
And
so
I've heard also that thieves cant is also not just a different language. It's like a mumbled, code phrases. It's like, oh yeah, the parakeet just had its last crumpet at noon, like something like that. And it
right.
means like we got a new shipment of gear and type of thing.
Yeah.
Um,
So you could have fun with that. Like the bugbear says nonsense, or the goblin comes in and says nonsense stuff to the bugbear, and
mhm,
everybody thinks as well that's just a weird little goblin. But your rogue is like, wait a second, they're actually talking about some important stuff.
yeah. And yeah, if they catch that, the bugbear could be like, look, I'll sell you some stuff on the cheap. Just keep this under wraps. Yeah. Then that could open the black market thing.
Yeah. So that would be a way to introduce that whole plot hook. Right now, your rogue has somewhere to fence his stolen goods.
Yeah. And you can even lead that to possibly like, oh yeah, we got that here. I just we got a new shipment, and he goes to the docks, and then they see also the other spy that'll lead them into this other storyline thing, possibly. So yeah, cool. A lot of intermingles of different things that can progress the story a bit.
Right. And so we've got kind of the fighter and the rogue covered here. What about your like your clerics, paladins, your spiritual characters? Because we do have a
The
little temple building down
Yeah,
here.
that temple down there looks kind of like, yeah, like it could be a memorial, yeah, some sort of temple of some kind. So that could be like paladin slash cleric. And then also I mean, whenever I think wizards, I always for whatever reason also think towers. So I mean, if that's not just a watchtower nearby the roads, which I'm pretty sure it probably is,
This one here.
um, yeah, that could be like, some sort of like there is a one singular mage here that just likes the countryside and is studying and whatever, and they could visit them, or like there's a little library at the bottom, something, if this small town has a town mage. I don't know if every town would have one or even a library, depending on where it is, but yeah, if you have those characters, you can definitely shove those in there.
Yeah. And so that's something you could do. And stat block wise, there's not in the monster manual. There's not a good low level wizard stat block,
Well,
but
you
you
could
could
also do cultist. Like that could just be like a
right.
you know different type of magic.
Yeah, you could use the cult fanatic stat block, or you can even take the druid stat block and just swap their wisdom and intelligence and change out their spells, right? So
I
those
already
are all,
thought of like a funny thing. It could be someone that went out there that has, a basic magic that is the quote town mage, lives in that tower, has a bunch of books down beneath, and they're trying to find remnants of the magic school that your party has been to or eventually goes to, and they're human, but they kind of dress up like a kobold, like they want to become one of them type of feeling. Like something, if you want to put in something kooky, I always like putting in weird kooky stuff. But yeah, just that was my thought is like, you could be a weird cultist. It doesn't always have to be just super dark and creepy.
yeah. Well, they could be like the town sage, right? And there's a little
Mhm.
library down there, and he's got a little herb garden down here. So he interacts with the villagers, but like when he's up in his
And yeah,
tower,
then
he's
it could
got
be
like,
the druid. You have the stat block for druid too.
yeah, that's true. But then up in the top of the tower is his some sort of weirdness, whatever culty things he's into is on the top
Yeah.
floor, and you know he worships the ancient dragon gods and dresses up like a kobold.
Yeah.
Because that like historically in D&D, gnomes and kobolds are like mortal enemies. So
Oh, so he's just trying to keep it super secret. That's
yeah,
funny.
so he could be a gnome who's like, you know, um, who's kind of brainwashed to the other side, and now he thinks that his people are the bad ones, and the kobolds are kobolds are misunderstood, and we
uh,
should be more like them.
that's funny. Then number 9 is that this looks like a perfect like, temple or memorial type of place as well,
I
for
like the
sure.
idea of like it being a memorial, and that could also be a way to um, link it to the dungeon that we made last time.
Mhm.
Is it could be a memorial to a dragonborn hero, because we say that the wizard, the illusionist wizard from the
The
the dungeon,
school.
yeah,
Yeah. I think I remember that. Yeah. There was like a not the one in this or was it the one in the center? There was either a statue in the center or in the bottom right, like the end room that
right,
was a dragonborn that the kobolds there were kind of like worshiping in a sense. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So that could be, and maybe that's where the kobolds got the idea to worship the dragonborn statue. Not only do kobolds revere dragons, but there's the like they've they've snuck into town a few times, and they've seen this memorial to this dragonborn hero, and they
Oh, so they
assume,
even think it's more of a god in that sense. That's funny. Yeah.
yeah. So this could be like the temple. If that dragonborn hero was a wizard from that school, right? This could be a temple to the god of magic, or this could be a temple to one of the dragon gods. Um, but like the memorial to the dragonborn hero, and there's so there's a priest and maybe a couple acolytes or whoever live here, and they can tell the player characters about the old academy, right?
Mhm.
So and coming back around to kind of building the village around your players, that could be an avenue for both your spellcasters, like your sorcerers and wizards, as well as your priests or your clerics and paladins, right?
Mhm.
So they could come here, learn about magic, worship their god, um, but then they could also learn about the plot hook that's going to take them out to the dungeon we built last time. In tower number 10, we've got our weird wizard.
Yeah, just a weird optional side thing that can possibly is just something funny or, a tribute to the story somehow, maybe. But it's always fun to put something in there that has no purpose, even though maybe your players will think it has a purpose and then just really deep dive into it. Kind of like the whole like there's a joke on Critical Role where Matt Mercer explained an entire room and then he got a little bit into detail about a chair. And so now whenever they were like, oh well, is there something we lift under the chair? Okay, are all the legs the same? Okay, it's wood. Is there like a specific? I knocked on the chair. Like they were legitimately trying to figure out something that was interesting about the chair. So now, whenever they go into certain rooms, it's like, all right, how many chairs are in here? And like,
So that those pieces, right, give us a decent amount to work with the village.
mhm,
And the other thing, that's helpful with the village, just to kind of keep it realistic, right? We talked about food source. So there's a farm here.
mhm,
You're going to have a water source. So there's the river there. Other potential food sources, the woods, where they might do some hunting.
yeah,
Um, so thinking of those things, like where do these people get their food and water from? And then how do they make a living, right? So you're going to have, your butcher, your baker, your candlestick maker, right?
mhm,
Um, those are always three three easy things to remember because of the old nursery rhyme. Just throw those in the town somewhere. And then does the town produce something, right? So the I put a water wheel on the river here just because I thought it would look
mhm.
cool. But this could be a mill, right?
Could be a mill. Yeah. Could
So
also be like, depending on which way the river is kind of running, it could also be like maybe, the river at the top curves from here. And it is like the closest place to ship things via water down river. And then it goes up to the city. So maybe they're like a shipping kind of town as well.
yeah, so that could be their kind of main source of work and income is bringing in shipments from other places and then you know shipping them into the city, right? Um, so like if we were to swap road number 3 and road number 4, so this road goes off that direction to the city, maybe this is where stuff comes downriver and it has to be loaded on from this point. It has to be loaded onto wagons and taken into the city. So
Yeah.
that makes this village, really important. It also means it's probably pretty close to the city. So be ready to build your city fast if you're going to do that.
Yeah. True. Yeah.
Um, but the cool thing about building the city is you would do it exactly like this because you can do it in districts.
Right.
Because most cities start off as small villages. They build a wall around it, and then stuff starts to grow outside the wall. Then they build another wall around that section. So you end up, you know, in medieval cities, you end up with these kind of almost concentric circles of walls,
Yeah.
or little sections that are walled off from other sections because that's how the city grew. And then that gives you your different districts in your city. So really, building a city is doing this exact same thing 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, and it's just like you'll add maybe, like barracks or just extra things there, like stables and stuff like that. But for the most part, you just kind of like make it look bigger. More houses, more people. But it's not like your players are going to go talk to everyone. They're not going to go look in residential areas, well, in houses and stuff like that. Hopefully, but yeah, it seems like it's just like you get the cornerstones of the purpose of the town, like what's there, how they work, the marketplaces, what is in the shop district, the center of the capital or where the king or queen lives, and then yeah, like libraries, and yeah, with your players, what they would be interested in, like fighters or mages, and you have little spots that they can visit if they want to.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. So you only need like, 5 or 6 interesting locations per city district, and you only need, 3 to 5 city districts to make it feel like the city's a decent size
yeah,
because they they talk to one NPC at one location and they ask for something that they're looking for and they're like, oh, well, that's in the other district. You have to go through, you'll pass the docks to get to, you know, the capital district, right?
hmm,
That makes it feel bigger, but really all it is, like I said, 3 or 4 of these put together.
yeah. And you can like if things are taking a long time in town, I've also had done this before where I do have like, random encounters where if like, oh, if they're traveling at night, like they get pickpocketed, and then it starts an altercation in an alley, or you can have little mini side adventures to liven it up if they're spending a lot of time in the town. Most of the time, I in my past, I'd say most of the time people kind of like just do the things in town that they want, like we've mapped out here. They're not like deep diving into, you know, oh, I want to see the florist. Where is the florist? Oh, let me speak to them about all the tulips, and you really get into that stuff. I mean, they can if they want to, I'm sure. But you can inject little things as well as like little encounters. If someone wants a little combat, or if there's like a chase scene, or even just a entertainment piece, like there's a open mic, people can go perform or do poetry or something like that, and have the players, if they want to, maybe like list a prize.
Oh. Yeah, I was doing in my last campaign, I was doing a murder investigation inside a city. And I could tell that, while half the players were really into the investigation, the other half were itching for a fight.
Mhm.
So they walked into a bar, and I had, an arena set up for like, pit fighting. And so the players got into a brawl in the pit fight.
Nice.
And then I had them, they came up with this idea. One of the players, for whatever reason, said his character needed a bath. So they went to the bathhouse, and I was like, I don't know how I'm going to make a bathhouse interesting. So I put a group of rival adventurers in there that started talking crap to them, and they got into a fight.
Oh,
They got into
no.
a fight with the rival adventurers in the bathhouse, which turned out to be a hilarious scene, because they're all, all the characters are naked in the bathhouse, and now they're, getting into a fist fight with a group of other naked people.
Amazing. That's
So it was,
awesome.
so that's just some people can get really intimidated by doing city adventures, or spending too much time in town, but you want to still think of it the same way as you do any other adventure location. You're looking for upbeats and downbeats.
Hmm.
So if you've had a lot of fighting and you need a downbeat, they can do something silly or fun in town.
Yeah.
Or if they've been in town too long and it's been too much of a lull, throw something in there that spices it up, right? And have it up.
And yeah, and encounters don't just include, combat. It's like I was saying before, like there could be an open mic, there could be a bake off or something that has a prize, or, something that has something to make the players roll, feel engaged, and use their skills, is something that, if they're spending a lot of time and you notice half your players are wanting to do something else, it's a good thing to combine,
Yeah,
the groups together.
I've had pie eating contests. Yeah. Festivals are always a good thing. Festivals is a great way to put lore into your adventure without doing a big exposition dump, right?
Yeah, true. More interactive.
So if you want to introduce a chunk of history, some lore about your world in order to set up like the main villain's motive or whatever, you can do that with a festival. So you take your elements of your lore, you make some games or contests, around that story, and then so your player characters come into the town, and all these people are doing this weird, fun game where all the children dress up like monsters and chase the adults around with sticks. And it's, it's a game of tag that the children like to play that your characters can get involved in and be goofy with. But it's actually, the reason they do this is that it's a reenactment of the time that the village was saved by the invading goblins or whatever.
Yeah. And that could even be something here that sets up, the conversation or hiring of the party from the mayor. Is there's a festival going on, and it has, the Dragonborn icon, or like a little flotation, balloon going through, or whatever the case may be. And the next day was, I believe we said the orb that was stolen was like a rainmaking orb for the crops and stuff like that. So it's like this big festival before the growth of the crops or something like that. And the mayor's like, hey, it was taken. We need this thing, or something along those lines,
Yeah.
But yeah. Festivals, I definitely agree. It's instead of just like having, I mean, in Skyrim, there's a bunch of lore in the books in Skyrim. No one ever reads them, right? It's all like, oh, I get how the lore is because of the interactions with the town, like what's going on here, seeing the things instead of reading about it in a tome somewhere.
Yeah. Well, and that could be like a perfect spring festival, right? They're having a spring festival, and maybe their version of spring festival is kind of like our version of Halloween, where people dress up, and that's how the kobold snuck in and stole the orb in the first place.
Yeah.
And that's why there's a
Perfect.
now, and now you have a ticking clock because we have to find the orb before the end of the festival, because the whole point of the festival is to bring rain after all the planting is done, right? So they've done
Yeah.
all the planting. They're ready to um, you know make it rain with their weather control orb and make sure that the new crops are going to get plenty of water, and so they've had this festival to celebrate that, and then the orb gets stolen in the middle of the festival.
And the weird cultist in the tower is finally able to just go out in his normal garb and feel like, oh, this is okay.
I can wear my weird outfit once a year when everybody else is dressed up.
Yeah. No, it definitely, especially if there's something weird about it or foreign, it definitely piques interest. Like when I was in Iceland, their Halloween thing that was going on, everyone was walking around in pajamas and they had balloons tied to their waist, and everybody was trying to steal each other's balloons like it was Mario Kart or something. And I was like, what is this? I want to know about this. Like, what's the lore? It got me interested. So yeah.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you could steal that for an adventure. Have people wearing balloons around town.
Yeah.
Maybe the
Cool.
weird cultist is the one who makes the balloons. He's the only one who understands the property effects of helium.
He's the person that can make rubber somehow.
Yeah. All right. Well, so the other thing that's really helpful is to have some good rumors or plot hooks that are going to connect your town or village to, um, you know, your dungeons or your adventure locations.
Hmm.
Um, so we're gonna switch over here. This is the Lazy DM. This is actually the original Lazy DM by Mike Shea. He does the Sly Flourish website,
Oh yeah.
and he's also Sly Flourish on YouTube. But this, I think you can get this was his original Lazy DM book. I think you can get this for free now. But you can download the newer version, the Return to the Lazy DM, or Return of the Lazy DM. Um, I think the PDF for that is only like $8, super affordable, and it's a
Nice.
fantastic tool. Um, and I think he's got two other books, and then he just launched a Kickstarter for his fourth or fifth book.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Seems like it's going well.
yeah, he's got a lot of good stuff. So I'm going to scroll down here because the first set of tables he has, I think we can roll once on each of them, and then that's going to create a conflict for our little village here. So he's got D20 adventure seeds and D20 movie inspired quests.
Perfect. All right. First roll is a 19.
19.
Going hot.
Going all the way down to the bottom list here. All right. A fallen hero's father frames local adventurers while allying with wilderness tribes to increase terror.
A fallen hero's father frames local adventures. So as in like framing your party?
Right.
Or
Or
frame
maybe another group of adventurers. Maybe the bandits from our dungeon, right?
Hmm.
Maybe those are maybe they were actually another group of adventurers that have been framed for some crime.
Gotcha. I mean, this could be like, yeah, the mayor is trying to, yeah, find someone to pin something on that he did that he can't, put under covers, possibly doing this. And while allying with wilderness tribes to increase terror. I mean, the wilderness tribes, I mean, that could be the kobolds we were talking about, or it could be just something completely different. You could kind of tweak it instead of wilderness tribes. It could be whatever network they're involved in,
Hmm.
um, to do something against the capital city or whatever the plan was for them.
Yeah. Well, that maybe that could be the bugbear, right? The bugbear spy, the network. Maybe
Oh,
the
okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
maybe the mayor was planning on um, framing the adventurers for stealing the orb, but he was actually going to sell the orb to the criminal syndicate that the bugbear works for.
Perfect. There we go.
And then and then the kobolds come in and mess it all up by stealing the orb for themselves.
And like maybe the there's something more important going on with this orb, and just trying to get eyes off of him and have be like take maybe give the orb to this syndicate and then go to the capital and be like, hey, there's this whole thing in our town. Oh, what's this? You have investigations saying there was a syndicate in this town. Oh my gosh. It must be these people. There's probably not two syndicates in this town. It must be this one singular syndicate. Trying to use them as a scapegoat for other things. And then be like, yeah, I have my own investigation going on. And then all these things that he's done, he tries to blame it on them instead. So yeah, that could work.
So this could be this movie inspired quest. This could be kind of, where do we go from here? Like, what are the things that we want to seed this town with, this village? We want to seed secrets and clues from this village to kind of set up a longer running game. And we're going to steal this idea from a movie, right? So
Cool.
go ahead and roll your D20.
Ooh. Got a 6.
6. All right. Seek revenge upon the cult that wiped out the whole village.
All right.
That's straight out of Conan the Barbarian, right?
Nice. Seek revenge on the cult that wiped out the whole village. Maybe the cult overall, maybe it's not a syndicate at all the mayor's with. Maybe it is a cult that he's involved with. And he's the one that, ended up destroying his, or at least his ancestors destroyed this school and tried to, remove this type of magic or take it over or do something with it. So maybe like that is the deeper connection, and why this is kind of an important thing to figure out is that the thing that the mayor is in with is what destroyed this place to begin with and caused all this stuff to happen.
I like that. That's good. The thing that I thought of, like if we switch back to our map, there we go, is we've got this road to Benville Farm, right? I mainly put that there just because I thought we needed more food, right? So I thought, well, maybe there's just a farm up the road. But what if Benville isn't a farm, but it's another nearby village? And so we could take your idea as kind of the background plot, right? That it was the mayor who wiped out those mages from that mage school, or his ancestors, right? He's actually connected to this cult, and maybe that cult to give them an active presence now has done something that just wiped out this neighboring village. That gives them a current crisis to go investigate. So they could always come back to town and figure out the plot of how all this is connected. But that could motivate them, because if Benville is where they get the majority of their food, and now it's wiped out.
You know what I thought just now that seems really creepy and appropriate is if it's like a hidden type of takeover. Like, I don't know what CR doppelgangers are, or changelings or whatever, but maybe they're just like, they replaced people one by one and are just, trying to take over, the whole countryside until eventually they can take over the city and the capital, with all the high politics there. And maybe they're just slowly trying to seep in, and something to do with, the mages back there were able to see through disguises or illusionary magic or whatever the case may be.
Right,
So they were like, oh, we don't, our stuff doesn't work on these people. So we had to wipe them out, to take over slowly through this place.
I like that. And maybe maybe our weird little gnome cultist over here in the tower, maybe he's kind of like a doomsday prepper kind of guy.
Yeah.
And he's the one that's always talking about, you know, these these doppelgangers.
Maybe
Beware,
he
there's
has like a little like what are those things? The things that detect like radiation.
a little Geiger counter.
Yeah, maybe he has a little Geiger counter that sometimes works for like he thinks it's for something else, but it actually works to detect like illusionary magic or
Shape changers.
uh yeah, shape changers. And it just like beeps, up against things or whatever.
Yeah, so everybody in the village thinks he's crazy.
Yeah.
Um, but he could actually be onto something. Like his conspiracy theory could be true, and it's like these body snatchers have taken over Benville, and maybe the mayor here is one of them.
Yeah.
And this village is their next
Ugh.
target.
It gave me shivers thinking about it. That's creepy. Just like just thinking about your players, like eventually, like, thinking that this is a normal town. Oh, this little, side quest option and getting deeper and deeper into this lore. And then just thinking about once you get to the point where you're like, oh my God, everyone could be an enemy. Like that's so creepy. That's crazy. I like
Yeah.
that.
And so I think we've got a pretty good foundation to start a campaign, right? So, somebody who's a brand new dungeon master could come in. They could just throw their players right at the entrance of the Delian Tomb, steal Matt Colville's, like his little first adventure, which is a great tool. And then they come back here to this town. They get the plot hooks to go to the dungeon that we built last time.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, you could set up this whole conspiracy theory and the town of Benville and the body snatchers. And that could be a whole like level 1 through 5 campaign right there.
Yeah. This is shaping up to be something I might even just run as a little mini campaign when my campaign runs through right now. So yeah.
Yeah, and now we gave something. Now we've given your adventure a little more of a theme, like this body snatcher theme, to get away from the school theme, so you're not running another school based campaign.
Yeah. 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 Maybe I'll make the ruins like, oh, it was some place called like Six Straven, something like that. I don't know. No one really cares about it anymore. Like, yeah. Be a little Easter egg for the campaign itself.
And the only other thing that you might need as a missing piece of all this when you're building your town is a good town name, right? And a great resource for that is there's actually a website that's like fantasy name generator. I've actually found it easier to just type into Google fantasy name generator for wizards, for town, for whatever.
Yeah.
Because I found that to actually, it takes you to that website if you type it in that way. But I've actually found that Google does a better job navigating their website than I do.
Yeah.
But
There's also just like, there's AI all over the place now. You can just ask any AI that you have on your phone or whatever. Like they'll just spew things out to you that are great.
But it is helpful to have like a kind of a catchy name, and fantasy name generator is an easy way to do it. Or like you said, any AI like Chat GPT or whatever.
Yeah.
This one I gave the name Three Willows just because as I was picking out stamps to build it, I found these cool looking little willow trees. And after I put 3 of them on the map, I was like, well, there's the name. It's the Three Willows.
Nice.
So that was just
that
one kind of evolved. So we've got our little village of Three Willows. And so what I'm thinking is I'm gonna put all this on the web, and we'll put links to this in the description. So you'll be able to get to the dungeon we made last time and this map, and I'll kind of type up some of the ideas we had in our little brainstorm. So I'm really excited to find out if anybody's going to take this and run it.
I am. If anything, I will. So yeah.
Well, that'll be fun. So at some point we'll have to come back after you've um, run the whole adventure and tell us how it went.
Sure. Yeah, maybe I'll even like possibly record it, and just see how it goes there. Because it's going to be, I play with my players online, so it'd be really easy to do that. Well, this is a solid town, and now I, more know the cornerstones of making a village instead of just winging it all the time like I do. Making things that are actually important. This is awesome.
Yeah. Well, and it's not always easy to build a map, but like I said, Incarnate makes it fairly easy to do, and you can always go online and find other maps like this.
Mhm.
Um, but one thing I found that players do like it when you drop a map like this on the table, and then they're like, "Oh, well, I want to go to this building. What's that building?" And so if they point to one that you don't have numbered, you can still wing it.
Yeah. Is there
Um,
on Incarnate? Is there can you make battle maps for it too? Like if they're wanting to go inside of something and something happens, like if they go into the mayor's house instantly and then they start like, we feel like something's up, and then they like start a ruckus and then like have guards come in or something.
yeah, yeah, you can
Cool.
definitely make battle maps on Incarnate. And you can when you make a map, you can share. There's the free version and there's the paid version. The paid version is like it's not that expensive, but I know on Incarnate you can share your maps and then you can view other people's maps that they've shared. So it is a way to find other maps that you're looking for. I'm not sure if you have to have the paid version to be able to find other people's stuff though.
Okay.
Um,
Either
but
way.
it's a great website. I've been using it for years for maps, and they've added over the years they've added more and more stuff. So like they didn't used to have the battle map stamp sets, but they do now. So they regularly update it and add more stuff to it. So it's definitely grown and improved over the years. It's a good tool for
Awesome.
sure.
I'll probably check it out then.
Yep. And the other thing too, when you're doing an indoor battle, this is another thought, like kind of tip. You don't necessarily have to have a battle map for for every encounter. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so especially indoor battles, right? If you're inside a house, there's really not a lot of room.
Yeah.
So
Strategic range doesn't really matter at that point. You can just do theater of the mind
right,
and turns.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you can easily run indoor combats, theater of the mind. But the what I found is the most helpful thing to do is you explain what's in the room, right? Like Matt Mercer's chair, right? So so
Eldritch blast the chair. Do we win?
so you do it theater to the mind, but you describe some interesting things that are in the room. That way, one of your players is going to pick up the chair and bash somebody over the head with it, or if there's a stairwell, they're going to try to run up the stairwell and jump off, Macho
Mhm.
Man Randy Savage style, and do some sort of shenanigans, right?
Yeah.
So that's the way I found to do impromptu encounters is just put them in a tight space with some interesting stuff and let players, go all WWE.
WWE. Yeah, you go into the mayor's room, and for some reason, there's an octagon-looking ring with a cage around it, and someone in the middle, just all sweaty with the spandex on, just pointing at you, saying, "Hey, brother." Encounter started. I don't. That's the mayor. It's Randy Savage / Hulk Hogan in one body.
Hilarious. There actually is one of the early D&D adventures. Um, Castle Amber. It's one of the early D&D adventures, and it's this weird fun house dungeon that takes place inside a noble manor.
Mhm.
And and it's just full of weird stuff. Like the family members of in this manor are all kind of trapped in time. I think that's where they get the name Castle Amber. Like
Okay.
they're like trapped in amber kind of thing. So it's kind of this snapshot of this crazy family, and they're a lot of the characters are just kind of in stasis until you interact with them. And one of the rooms you walk into, and it's totally pointless. Like the characters don't have to do it at all. But you walk into a room, and one of the rooms, there's just a boxing ring and a boxer, and you can climb in the ring and spar with him if you want to.
Fun.
Yeah, it's
One thing that I just thought of thinking about all these like weird scenario things now is if you really, really, as a DM, like you really want them to meet number 10, the weird cultist, uh, you know, kobold cosplayer. You could like another thing instead of the festival idea that we had before. This could also be like a thing that includes the players or something like that. You could straight and if you want them to meet this character for story progression reasons or just whatever. Instead of a festival, you could also do a kind of like a dinner for schmucks thing, where like yeah, you're inviting the adventurers. You're like, oh, because a lot of times everyone's party has just weird compositions, right? They're mismatched. There's people that just have weird things about them. And if they're just in a normal town like this, like they'll be spotted immediately, right?
Right.
And yeah, it's just someone thinks that they're interesting, and maybe gets invited to this weird dinner at the mayor's house. And they see across the table this weird kobold cosplayer, and they're sitting there like, "What are we doing here?" And then they like, get shown around and shown off as this like, "Look what I brought! Did I win the dinner for schmucks?" I don't know. That was just something in my head that it could also be instead of a festival if you don't want to run a whole festival thingy. But
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. So like the the gnome is just approaches them in town because they're outsiders, they're weirdos,
yeah.
and he identifies with weirdos. He's like, "Oh, you must be like me. Come to dinner." In the comments, share your ideas. What are your thoughts? How would you connect this big conspiracy with this bugbears shadow syndicate and the creepy mayor and um the spy from the big city? How would you play all this out?
Yeah, and I'll get back to you on that because I'll probably do it pretty soon here. My thing's coming up, and I'm definitely like excited to run these things and build off a little bit, or just have it be a self-contained story. So,
Well, thanks for joining the Dire Den today.
yeah, thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe, like, and all that good stuff. Comment down below, like you said, and we'll see you later.